everyone, and welcome to the second day of the C2C and our first and probably one of the greatest panel discussions that you are going to be very honored to hear is taking part right now. And for the next hour, you are very welcome to find out more about the iGaming plus blockchain. What does it mean for the market? So let's welcome all our speakers with a round of applause.
Так, всем, кто выжил, здравствуйте, доброе утро. Спасибо, что пришли на нашу панель. Да, панель у нас по iGaming и блокчейну. И, пожалуйста, панелисты, представьтесь, расскажите немного о себе, о вашем бэкграунде. И давайте начинать.
На русском или на...
Мы на русском, а ребята на английском.
Меня зовут Александр Удалый, я представляю компанию DSB. Мы привезли сюда игровой блокчейн и решения для игровых платформ. Ну и последние 8 лет я посвятил игровой индустрии, в частности, индустрии гейминга. Поэтому меня назвали. Панель, спасибо.
Всем привет, меня зовут Константин Кацев, я человек, который выступал. Я представляю компанию TrueFlip. TrueFlip — это блокчейн-разработчик, блокчейн-платформа, как раз iGaming решений, свои игры и своя платформа, и свой способ применения технологий блокчейн. Спасибо.
Всем привет, меня зовут Белянин Дмитрий, и я руковожу маркетингом компании DAO Казино. Занимаюсь маркетингом больше 10 лет. Последние 5 лет конкретно работаю уже в iGaming-индустрии, возглавляю отдел маркетинга в разных компаниях. Наш проект занимается созданием блокчейн-протокола для гейминга. Фактически мы сейчас работаем над созданием новой технологически регулируемой индустрии гейминга, которая, возможно, уже в ближайшем будущем коренным образом поменяет просто весь мир гейминга.
Hi, I'm Darren Oliver. I'm the founder of BlockDraw. We're a casino platform. It's a little bit different than many of the others out there in that we chose to use private blockchains, and we use the public blockchain to verify it, and we have a decentralized app that we run using a protocol development standard that sort of re-randomizes using cryptography. It's a very unique, very unusual platform. That's probably why I'm going to join this discussion.
Hello, I'm Sons. I'm coming from Cashless.io. That's a B2C casino operator, and 2 years ago we started developing games utilizing smart contract technology. Right now we use smart contracts for payment systems, and then in the future we will move to random number generation and games logic. When Ethereum Foundation launched, smart contracts available 2 years ago. So we have been the first company which developed a slot machine and received a lot of interest from the industry.
Окей, спасибо всем. Хорошо, вот есть iGaming, да, традиционный. И какие, скажем, вызовы, какие проблемы существуют, которые можно решить или улучшить с помощью применения блокчейна и криптовалют, с помощью ваших продуктов и ваших технологий?
Очень просто и очень сложно одновременно. То есть на рынке iGaming существует несколько важных проблем. Первое — это payment системы, то есть это прием средств от игроков и последующие выплаты этим игрокам денег. То есть когда ты все это делаешь через карты, это всегда очень долго и требует ряд процедур, которые от тебя не зависят. Вот, соответственно, блокчейн может помочь в этом вопросе использования криптовалюты и приема средств платежей, таких как биткоин. Ну и уже решает проблему. И проблемы, наверное, коллеги тоже расскажут.
Before joining BlockDraw, I was a regulator by the Albany Gambling Control Commission for 3.5 years. And one of the things that a lot of people in the blockchain community ask themselves is, why do you need a regulator? I think it's one of the questions we're going to address, but the reality is that blockchain solves a lot of issues that happen in regulation. One of the core precedents of regulation is probing, which is checking out who is running the actual casino. And the reason regulators do that is they want to make sure that they have somebody who's reputable, who's not going to cheat players. Because the reality is, regulators can only do so much. They're understaffed. They don't have the ability to check everything. So what typically happens in a regulated environment is the regulator will test the casino, make sure the RNG is fair, make sure that the payment systems are fair, make sure that they hire people who don't have criminal records, make sure they check underage gambling, things like that. Because you don't want rogue employees going around changing things. But the real reality is that several things happen in traditional gaming platforms. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens. Things like rogue employees, things like companies that just change the RNG after they were tested. And regulators sort of rely on little things like blogs to see if players are complaining. But it's too expensive to go and retest every week or every month. Testing can cost as much as $50 grand per game US. So it's not economical for the regulator to insist on retesting on a regular basis. One of the great advantages of blockchain is you have the ability to actually generate provably fair and provably random results. Lots of people talk about provably fair, but very few people actually talk about provably random. And randomness is something you can prove if you use blockchain and a variety of tools to do it. So, payment systems, I can't tell how many casinos that were regulated that failed and player money was lost. Before this panel, we were just talking about one, well-known one that entered the crypto space. So there's a variety of issues that can be solved, but it isn't a complete panacea for regulation.
Ну да, в принципе, правильно, как говорил коллега, мир гэмблинга достаточно коррумпирован. Чаще всего системы меняются прямо на лету, то есть у кого-то RNG поменяли, у кого-то там, не знаю, слоты подкрутили. И самая большая проблема связана с доверием. То есть фактически на данный момент блокчейн — это самое важное и, возможно, одно из первых реальных применений блокчейна именно для решения проблемы доверия, потому что если посмотреть на какие-нибудь, в принципе, достаточно большие форумы askgamblers.com, мы постоянно видим, что люди присылают заявки о том, что меня обманули, меня там обманули. И чаще всего бывают скриптовые казино, которые не содержат в себе даже какого-то вообще, в принципе, рандома, которые просто подкручены, каждая сессия подкручена, люди приходят играть в эти вулканы и постоянно проигрывают. Вот, фактически блокчейн — это такой хороший новый стандарт индустрии, который позволит всем раз и навсегда просто понять: да, это честно. И я очень надеюсь, что в будущем гэмблинг перестанет быть такой большой, черной, страшной индустрией. И, возможно, мы сможем сказать раз и навсегда, что мы сделали индустрию честной, мы сделали ее прозрачной. Вот, в принципе, и такая же ситуация возникает, в принципе, со всеми участниками системы гэмблинга, начиная от игроков, заканчивая аффилиатами, которые привлекают трафик, и они не получают свои вознаграждения в полной мере, потому что их просто шейрят, и чаще всего им не платят полноценно те деньги, которые они зарабатывают от привлечения игроков. И когда у вас просто весь LTV, жизненный цикл пользователя, расписан в блокчейне, вы можете видеть каждую транзакцию, вы можете с точностью до 1% посчитать, сколько денег он вам принес, сколько вам заплатят. И это действительно важно. И это важно для каждого из участников вообще индустрии гэмблинга.
I'll join my brothers in arms and speak English, not to waste time, but I'd like to point out another consequence of appliance of blockchain technology in the industry. During the last 60 years, since the first mechanical slots in Vegas, it was controlled and regulated, and all those boundaries were made like step by step. First, mechanical slot machines were like working with 50% RTP, something like that. It was very low. It was extremely hard for the end customer to win something, but they were still playing it. During the 90s, during 2000s, when all the casinos went online, when all those slot machines went online, they were making it like obviously for the marketing purposes. They were making it like 90%, and then 95%. During the last couple of years, some of the global gaming providers with the most turnover volumes, they finally reached about 96, 97.
Even 99.
Even
With rebates. With rebates.
Yeah. Not as popular as Net, but still, yeah, they try to, compete with that. But when blockchain evolved, when blockchain technology evolved, when Bitcoin appeared in the market, there were some people, like I would call it, who wrote their first smart contracts, or probably fair games, and they had up to 1%. Was it like 99 or 99.5% usage, and they were probably fair. They were totally optimized. They were all the deposits and withdrawals were optimized. There was a huge community chats, etc. When I was exploring this segment, I realized that actually those people, like those traders, cryptocurrency. Believers, etc., they created their own iGaming market, and they set their own rules there. It should be fair, it should be optimized, it should be community driven, and I think that another consequence of appliance of the technology is not the technology itself, is a social effort, because now. Even in some small segment of blockchain customers, of Bitcoin traders, there is a certain amount of products driven by the end users and not by the marketing itself. When I saw those games, they were pretty simple, very hard to compare with existing iGaming products, but they were community driven, and that's probably the most massive effect into the industry, because now people are deciding what they like, what they want to do, and probably it's going to have a huge impact during the next couple of years to the entire industry.
Yeah, the social thing is something that I'd like to touch on a little bit, because a lot of people look at blockchain casinos and say, is there really a market for blockchain casinos? And when I say blockchain casinos, I mean pure, like edgeless, pure blockchain casinos, because there's plenty of casinos that accept Bitcoin or Ethereum, and they claim to be perfectly fair, but they're just traditional server-based casinos. They're not blockchain casinos. The era of blockchain casinos is very, very young, very, very new. You have dice games that run on Ethereum. Dice games right now that I estimate some of them are making $500,000 to $1 million a year on very little infrastructure. It's just dice, if you look at the total daily turnover in crypto, it's about $120 billion. If you take just 1% of that market, that's daily trading volume in crypto, you're looking at $12 billion. And that's a 1.2 billion. That's a lot of money that's potentially out there for gambling revenue. 1.2 billion a day, if you think about that. And that's a small amount. It's easily obtainable. If exchanges are trading 120 billion a day, there's no reason that a large casino couldn't operate on that scale. It's just that the market is young, it's new, it hasn't developed yet, and it will. It's just going to take time. And as people get used to the technology, the one thing I learned in the regulatory space is that gambling is very user specific. If you're a poker player, you're a poker player. You're not a sports player. If you're a sports player, you're a sports player. If you're a casino player, you're a casino. If you're a slots player, you're a slots player. We even saw a social gaming company in the U.S. try to take U.S. social games that were slots, very popular, and try to port them into the U.K. market as cash money games. It failed. That's how specific gambling is. So gambling it is a social thing. People are used to what it is they like. And people who are having crypto, holding crypto, and happen to also be gamblers are going to eventually adopt crypto casinos when they see that they're perfectly fair. I'm not so sure that 1%, 2% really matters. I think what matters to them is being able to operate in crypto and keep crypto balances. That's what I think really matters.
Yeah, just to add up, so it became quite a niche community, and these people who have cryptocurrency, for them, just the fact that you're betting cryptocurrency is a benefit. and a lot of people, who are making bets on the side. They have like forums, then they have discussions, then there's cryptocurrency prices and things like that. And it became, I would say, like several times more social than any like classical casino. Because if you go to classical online casinos, usually you see, like a huge page with 1,000 slot machines, and there's no people you can interact with, and it's like quite awkward experience. And I think because of cryptocurrency community, it highlighted to the casino industry like a new areas where they could point it out. The social element is incredibly important. Yeah.
Ну, отлично. Все вот отметили по поводу probably fair, да, по поводу того, что игры честные, что нельзя там ничего читить. При этом все подаются на лицензию ту или иную. Если все так probably fair и решаются вопросы регулирования, лицензирования, зачем тогда вообще в крипто-гэмблинге все это нужно, лицензирование и регулирование?
So there's still problems, right? You still want to make sure that crypto doesn't solve every problem. It's not a panacea for every solution. So there's still issues of underage gambling, problem gambling. Now, whether a crypto casino cares about those things is a moral question. But from a legal standpoint, governments care. So, and there's also the question of tax. So for example, let's take each one of them. So for the moral questions, which are underage problem gambling and underage gambling, traditional casinos have things like self-exclusion, and they have ways to check underage gambling. Crypto, it's somewhat easier for an underage gambler to gamble, because they can just create a wallet, but they still, if proper KYC is done by the casino, they can still weed out 90% of it, just like they can on a real casino. So regulation has some value, I think, still. But moreover, then there's the question of tax. So if you want to operate in a whitelisted jurisdiction, the reality is that jurisdiction will go after you if you don't have a license. And whether or not you, as a casino, whether or not you want to pay the 15% tax, that's your decision or not. But you're going to have to operate legally in that jurisdiction. So for example, the UK have laws that very specifically define what companies can operate gambling. And if you don't, then you're going to get chased by the UK authorities. Who wants that? The US market is gradually opening up for casino. It's already open for sports betting. Sports betting is something we haven't really talked about. It's different and it requires some different technology to input. But from a casino standpoint, there may be a time where in certain states, blockchain is possible to implement in the very near future. And those regulators are extremely difficult. They're going to want a lot of things from people. So if you haven't practiced good KYC, if you haven't practiced good underage checks, if you don't have self-exclusion policies, things like that, it may prevent you from going in those areas. Having said all of that, if you're going to operate in great markets such as China, and you don't care about ever operating in white markets, then all you need maybe is a Curacao license, and you can go for it. Realistically, that's just the reality of it.
Right, but yeah, everybody's having Curacao license now, right? Well, there's Malta.
Curacao theoretically does require KYC. You guys do KYC.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so you do underage?
Yeah, we do, like really strict. We also want to acquire a UK license, so we'll be following.
So there you go. So I think you don't have a choice. You have to, even with Curacao, you have to do basic stuff. You should do basic stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, with Curacao license, is it possible to operate in any other territory, any other country?
So licenses aren't what people think. The Curacao license gives you the ability to operate in Curacao.
Right.
Okay, and it gives you the legal cover to operate a Curacao legal entity. Okay, so you can form a legal entity and nobody can do anything to you in Curacao, the government will protect you. But you're not technically legal in any country if that country has laws against it and you operate there. If it doesn't have laws against it, then you can operate in the world of gambling regulation. We call that gray market. So yes, you can operate anywhere you want, even without a Curacao license, if it's not illegal. But you know, you have certain issues that, like, you need a bank account, right, to get your crypto into. And the bank's going to say to you, well, where's your legal jurisdiction? And you're going to say, well, I'm in the BVI. And the bank's going to say, well, the BVI is gambling is illegal. How can we open a bank account for you? So you need that Curacao license to say to the bank, oh, we have a Curacao license, so we have a legal company, and it's legal to operate a gambling business in Curacao. So there's little details like that that matter, and that's why people have Curacao licenses.
Yeah, and also just to add it up, the trend is obvious. Every country is issuing their own regulatory frameworks, and the country where I'm from, is Lithuania. So yeah, it's a pretty small country, and it already has its own national gambling license, and jurisdictions they block like almost all casinos which do not have this license. And also the thing is that the licensing requirement is not being pushed by government, but it's pushed by large casino operators, and they have huge incentive to block you if you have no license. So yeah, it's like a really like a must thing to do. And another reason, which is quite pragmatic, if you want to scale your business, so you need to be able to purchase large media channels such as Google Ads, and if you have no license, you can't really do that. So if you want to market your business, license is one of the key requirements.
May I add something? Yeah, go ahead.
So I think there's actually one more point of we're all talking about blockchain, we're talking about being like transparent and other things, but we're still living in the traditional world of governments, of taxes, of all of of all of this stuff required to run your own casino. So basically, just try to remember when the first casinos, like offline casinos, they just appeared. It took a lot of time to create first legal entities to control them. And then online gaming appeared, so they required some time to create their new regulation. And now it's a new market. I think it's like maybe just 1 year ago, the first online casinos based on blockchain were actually launched. So it's just not enough of time to governments, is a big machine with a lot of bureaucracy inside, and we're just standing in front of a brand new era of blockchain. And it's really important to understand that if you'd like to get the real regulation, we need just to wait a little, yeah. And maybe what I was talking about before, we'll all be creating a new industry of systems which will not be required any kind of regulations because they will be trusted from the scratch. So maybe someone will add, a regulator role inside of their own casino system, and the blockchain data will just flow inside of the tax machines and stuff like this. So basically, I think that we need to wait. It's just so little time from the first casino started, so let's just wait a little,
One of the reasons we built on private blockchains as opposed to using everything on the public blockchain is because I believe that sooner or later, mainstream gambling companies are going to want to adopt blockchain casinos. It's just a natural niche for them. The main reason they haven't done it is there's security issues. They don't want to take risks of getting involved in this with what's happening. And they want a clean business. We haven't done an ICO, so we're lucky in that sense, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it. But we have our own funding, so it didn't really matter that much. But that gives us a cleanness that other people don't have. And having it on private servers is something they're used to. We have a verification system that allows us to lock our servers into the public blockchain quite nicely. So we think we get the best of both worlds. But eventually, online casinos, traditional ones, they all want to adopt different types of gaming. That's just another product for their platform. And sooner or later, they'll adopt blockchain casinos.
Yeah, indeed. I just wanted to add my point of view because your question was a pretty tricky one. You almost directly asked us, do you need a license? Why? Let's admit the fact. I'll take it on my own. I'll take all the responsibility. There is a huge amount of products operating without any license. We go without blockchain. it's a black market. It exists, and it overwhelms the entire volume of regulated market multiple times. But still, yeah, I totally agree with you. It's more about moral issues. It's more about how you feel about the product. Like, because you can, like, literally in our world, you can do anything, like any illegal activity. There are no boundaries. There are no like prediction models which will stop you from it. There is a chance for it, right? Let's admit the fact. But the thing is, it's not the proper way to do it. In 1994, the first online casino appeared. It was created by microgaming. In 1998, I hope so. Within 4 years, the first online gaming association, it was called OBRA, appeared. Fun fact, it was created and backed by microgaming company, by the gambling operator themselves. Why did they do it? Why did they do it in 4 years? Like, why did they decide to put those boundaries, to put those chains on them? It was a rational choice of survival, because they saw the iGaming operators. They saw that there is a huge amount of scam, of illegal activities, of underage gambling, of shitty products appearing on the market, following them, but not following correctly. And they realized that the industry will only survive with organic growth, with some natural regulations which will help to control, to maintain, to cure the industry. It's all about moral principles. It's all about rationality, but self-regulated market sometimes survives, sometimes it doesn't. Mainly we speak, like, if you take any historical example, we'll see some short-term perspective. In order to maintain the industry, in order to maximize the market, we need such kind of regulation. But it may be created with some different tools. I don't know. Like, now it's all controlled by governments. And yeah, I totally agree with the fact that they don't do their thing right. And maybe that regulations should not belong to some, like, certain authorities. Because there is a good example. Like, in 1994, there was only one country in the world with online gaming license. It was Antigua and Barbuda. I don't even know where they're placed on the map, but still, that's how they created their economy and survived. Now there are about 50 or 60 countries with their own licenses, with their own regulations, and they adopt the regulatory principles. They adopt some legal requirements, but some of them do not succeed. There is there is a number of countries, we have studied that question, we have explored it, and there is a number of countries with some regulation requirements, but without any prosecutions for illegal activity, let's say. So let's imagine there is a country, there is a license for iGaming, but if you don't follow that license, if you don't obtain that license, if you don't follow their rules, you actually don't get punished. Why do they need that license? Like, it's very, like, utopic to think that someone will be voluntary enough to go there to get the license and operate free. But I really think that in our industry there is a huge impact, again, from the community and from the businesses themselves. And there should be some time period in order to adopt the best practices. But I don't think, like, I won't agree with my colleague saying that we should wait. I think that we should do something. We should dictate our own rules and agree on some, like, negotiate some mutually beneficial terms which will satisfy everyone. But yeah, we should make it. We should follow them. But still, the only motivator of those rules will be the operators, the businesses.
So basically doing what microgaming was doing, right? To
Yeah,
keep
kind
some
of.
quality control, right? So,
Yeah.
so, you know.
And yeah, about waiting, I was saying about the whole industry. For example, we're doing a lot of steps in order to help authorities on building their own blockchain licensing. For example, we're working with the Malta Gaming Authority. We've been in negotiation with Swedish companies, and yeah, we're doing really a lot in terms of creating this whole new blockchain world to put it in, like in government hands. Yeah, that's basically what we're doing.
You know, there's a lot of reasons to be regulated or not be regulated. And there's questions about should the blockchain industry have a different kind of regulation, because we do solve a lot of the regulatory issues. Not all of them, but we solve some of them. Some of the big ones. You know, you don't have the issues of player funds anymore, in theory. But there's still these other remaining lingering issues. There's the issue of tax revenue for governments that want it. There's the self-exclusion issue, the underage issue, the anti-money laundering issue. Those issues are not easily solved by blockchain, purely by blockchain, other technologies. So there's two things. There's one really good reason why all of us should pursue regulation. One really, really good reason. It has nothing to do with moral, it has nothing to do with anything else. The blockchain industry is a very, very small industry. It's growing, and it's going to be huge in 20 years. No one even knows how high it will be. But it will be much bigger. But the reality is the traditional casino market turns over something like probably $1 trillion a year in gross gambling revenue, okay? And we don't turn over anything like that in our industry. So the point is, those companies are making hundreds of millions of dollars a year, individual companies. I can count in my head that I was a regulator of balance sheets, private companies that were making on the order of 200 million a year or more. And there's 2 or 3 sports betting companies in the 600 million a year category. So if we ever want to sell our companies to those people at large multiples, we're going to have to be licensed, because they won't buy us if we're not licensed. So there's an incentive, a financial incentive for us to do all those things. Unless we just want to operate a business and make money as a great market business, great. But that's a big financial incentive, because a business like ours might be able to attract large multiples, and the amount of money could eventually be a lot of money. So I honestly think it matters for my business. But one more thing, the black market, it's such an insidious market. And I don't think people realize how insidious it is. I've seen casinos, Russian ones, funny enough, that skinned, I'm sure you know this, that have skinned popular games.
Yeah.
They play like real games. They show the pay tables of real games, but the pay tables are nowhere near the real pay tables of those games. So players get on there and they play the casino. They see a game that they've maybe seen on microgaming, and they think, oh, it's this microgaming game. They play it, and they think the return to player is 99 or 95, whatever it is on microgaming. Where in actuality, it's 60 or 50. It's crazy what they do.
It's just off,
Not just off. I mean, I talked to one operator who was telling me they tuned it down to this one game down to 60% return to play, and they were eating 40%, just printing money off it. So it's an insidious market. It's out there. If you want to be in that market, great. That's a personal choice. Blockchain will be hard to do because the data will be available for people to check.
Yeah.
Okay, so technology-wise, what exactly you guys are using blockchain for? And what issues you're solving with it?
We all approach it differently.
Yeah. I mean, there are lots of technology guys here, and I'll just start from the most obvious points, I think. The first part of it, and the most appealing for the operators, was limitless transactions, like cryptocurrencies, not the blockchain itself, not the technology itself, but the cryptocurrencies. they became very appealing for the operators. I talked to one of my colleagues, they have a traditional online casino with Bitcoin and Ethereum operations, transactions, and he was showing me that stats from his old product, and he was saying, see, there is a person who put 4 bets, 500 grand each. Like, he put 2 million euro within 4 bets within like 5 minutes, and he said, like, I'm totally satisfied with that, and I'm totally satisfied I'm working with Bitcoin because there is no bank in the world, there is no financial authority which will allow you as a net customer to spend 500,000 euros for a single transaction, especially when they call you and they say, okay, you want to make a deposit like 500,000 euros, where are you going to deposit? Gambling? No, it's not going to work this way. Bitcoin allows it. But yeah, speaking of technology, it's more important than cryptocurrencies, and I think that all of you will support me and tell all the benefits.
That's funny you mentioned the VIP market in crypto could be massive.
Yes.
You know, because there is no VIP market in traditional servers, not like that. And you know, in Macau, you have players that will bet $1 million a hand in baccarat, and that can happen in crypto. The casino will have to be well capitalized for it. That's the problem. The casinos aren't well capitalized to do it, but a time will come when that happens in the very near future. But you asked about technology. We're a little different. We use private blockchains, and we link them to the public blockchain, and we have a distributed app that uses a very unique, developed in Stanford, kind of re-randomizer, and then all of that data gets reported to our private blockchains, and then our private blockchains are what we call notary stamped to the public blockchain. We do all of this because it's faster, there's no gas, we can go transaction by transaction, we don't try to reinvent the wheel, we didn't create a separate blockchain. I saw an ICO out there that just created a brand new blockchain to do the same things that we do. But there's some real benefits to having multiple blockchains. One, there's security benefits. Two, you can permission different blockchains to do different things, and it really, really matters. So I think, in fact, MasterCard just was announced that they came up with a patent for payment processing. And they're doubling the unit for payment processing of blockchain transactions. And they did something very similar to our patent process that we're trying to patent, which is use multiple permission blockchains privately and do them. The difference between the MasterCard patent and ours is we actually take, because we knew that people in the blockchain industry would want verifiability, we stamped our blockchains every minute or so to make sure that we can't alter them. And that gives us the same verifiability. Actually, when our system gets scaled, it'll actually become more verifiable than the public blockchain, because we'll be stamping our blockchains every second or every 2 seconds, and a transaction on the blockchain is maybe 10 seconds. So that's how we're
Yeah, so in our case, we have deposit and withdrawal system, which uses this Ethereum smart contract. And then all incoming casino deposits and money outflows are becoming publicly available on Ethereum Explorer. And also, the smart contract puts everything into the same wallet, and it calculates the size of the bankroll. And like a growing bankroll for a casino is growing business revenue. We thought, before making that, maybe it might be interesting for players, but in the end, it turned out that players don't really care about that, that our stakeholders are really into this kind of thing, because the smart contract gives a huge business transparency. And right now there are a couple of key stakeholders, so let's say investors who want to actively track the business unit. They no longer need to rely on our video posts. They just can go on the blockchain and check whether we are speaking truth or not. And also, the second important segment is affiliate programs, because right now in affiliate industry, casino affiliate industry, affiliates need to rely on third-party applications. Well, technically they need to rely on humans, and it's not the best thing to rely on. And in our case, when we have a smart contract for deposits and withdrawal systems, it makes it easier to convince affiliates to promote this kind of a product.
Я могу рассказать, как мы используем блокчейн, помимо того, что сказали коллеги. Во-первых, имеет большое значение для наших игроков, мы это видим, возможность видеть то, что мы выплачиваем другим игрокам. Да? То есть мы публикуем транзакции, все видят о том, что выплаты идут. И мы публикуем еще и выплаты и депозиты. Да? То есть все видят, что сколько к нам приходит денег, сколько люди выигрывают, сколько люди выводят. Это очень необходимый инструмент. И второй инструмент мы используем в играх. То есть в наших собственных играх можно проверить результат. Можно, если тебе там пришли такие цифры, например, в лотерее, ты можешь пойти, посмотреть хэш, сам проверить. Если у тебя есть знания GitHub, ты можешь быть уверен в том, что мы никак на это все не влияем. Мы используем это в маркетинге в первую очередь и в позиционировании, поэтому видим большое отличие, это есть уникальное торговое преимущество.
Yeah, all right. So basically, we're a blockchain protocol, and we're using Ethereum. And I think we have a lot of similarities to Thomas was talking about. We're writing smart contracts. We have our own state channels with built-in random, and we will be releasing like huge white paper about our state channels, which are written by our cryptography team with some guys from EIT University. So. Our approach is a little bit different because we're working on providing businesses a set of tools to create their own casinos, for example, to run their own affiliate programs, and for example, players just play. And we actually invented one more role in this whole system. It's called bankroll bankers. So basically, in traditional casinos, casino is the one who holds the bank, right? And we start off maybe there is one more point of people holding a lot of our tokens. So we decided to let them bank all of the casinos. So basically we have this one unique role. It's basically like a set of tools to help all of these people to bank casinos. They can have a lot of choice. Like I can select a casino, I can select a couple of games. I see all of the stats of each casino, amount of sessions, like amount of players playing at the same time. So basically, it's like admin panel for bankroll bankers. Yeah. So basically, this is it.
Are we all smart contracts? We all using Ethereum smart contracts? No.
No, we introduced our own blockchain.
You did.
Yeah, it's not good.
So the three of us Ethereum and the rest do it.
Yeah, but there, as you mentioned before, I'd like to point it out as well. There is a huge benefit for regulators and for regulatory companies because they really get that 24/7 access. They can get that 24/7 access. It may be implemented. We are working on it as well, but there are.
Yeah, one of the things we did was I mentioned we have multiple permission blockchains. One of the blockchains that we use is an audit chain, and that is specifically designed to give to regulators access to it.
Yeah, and that's a very good point for them. I know it's not rational for businesses, to uncover all the operations, but still, it's a great benefit for the regulator because now they have that tool, in order to listen to that heartbeat like 24/7 and make sure that all the games are working properly, all the users are satisfied because their complaints they can still remain in the blockchain as some comments or something, and making sure that all the financial transactions are clear. So I think there are two main factors, two main benefits of the blockchain technology plans. The two most obvious benefits, which we desperately need right now, I mean, by saying we, I mean the industry itself, there are financial benefits, speed of transactions and transparency, and regulatory benefits. Again, transparency of operations and full access to the previous transaction.
Our re-randomizer, as I call it, it's called the goalie algorithm. What it does is it takes inputs from each player and then from a third source, which is our servers, And no one individual can determine the outcome. So they work together to create the outcome existing. And it uses as an input industry standard RNGs. So that essentially means that and then what happens is it uses simple mathematics, which is proven, there's proofs for it, and cryptography. And the combination is you get a result that we can actually prove randomness. Not just provably fair,
yeah.
We can prove randomness, and we can print it on a blockchain in real time.
Yeah, because it may be probably fair, but still working on 50% right?
I knew a casino that had a Bitcoin casino that had provably fair, and they were tracking user behavior. And what they did was, this just showed you how insidious things can be. They were provably fair, but they started tracking user behavior. And over time, they had certain players that were obviously compulsive gamblers, and they started manipulating the results on them. It seems strange, but they would know they wouldn't bet certain things. Yeah. So they could send certain things down to those things in pre-commitments, and they would have high confidence that they wouldn't bet them. And of course the player didn't know it, and they just ate them alive.
Yeah, like on one of our products, it was mainly targeted to Asian region. We saw that there is a huge difference in lottery tickets, in winnings, in lottery winnings. And we first thought that there is a huge issue with RNG algorithm. It was decentralized. It was our own prototype and the first one, and we were really scared that we did something wrong. But then, when we analyzed it, we saw that there is a small issue of like Asian traditions. They believe the number 8 is the lucky number. So when it was a winning combination containing number 8, we had a huge amount of winnings. When there were no 8 in the winning combination, it was almost 0. So it was like, there are some issues which still depend on the human factor. But even talking about probably fair algorithms, I read it on Bitcoin Talk forum. By the way, I don't know, but we should mention that there is a company here, the creators of Staycom and Prime Dice, and they actually created that crypto gambling organization, but talking about regulations, etc. I think you are the member of them, no?
No.
Okay. But still, yeah, there is an existing organization maintained by businesses and controlling the market already. So even in the self-regulatory market, it still exists. So yeah, on that forum I read one interesting case about probably fair games. Some games are developed in that manner that you can check the previous or the next. Okay, but the thing is, truly good working certified RNG algorithms, they don't depend on previous bets, on previous behavior. When we talk about probably fair games, everyone says that okay, you can check the previous bet, but no one says if it influences the overall, the overall payout.
That comes back to the randomness factor.
Yeah, and in some cases, I know that in some cases they do that. They control the payout depending on the previous user behavior. It's total nonsense, and it's not right. But some people still do it. So yeah, I think that even in these cases, probably fair. It's not probably fair algorithm. It's not a cure, and we still should apply a proper simplification.
All right, guys, we only have 5 minutes, and I have like another 5 questions. So yeah,
don't rush. Okay?
So yeah, let's talk about volatility. We've been discussing that before this panel. I'd like to listen to your opinions on how we can deal with the crypto volatility.
You mean the token, the
Token,
value
yes,
of the token?
yes.
Yeah. One of the things I mentioned is we're working on a stable token, because we think that a stable token combined with a profitable business is the right way to run a stable token. But particularly in the casino space, when people gamble, the traditional behavior is they want to gamble and they want to be able to collect their winnings. The problem is if there's no liquid market for the token, then it's difficult to do a lot of gambling in the token. At least you can scale the token. So with a stable token, potentially you have unlimited liquidity, right? If the provider can provide it. So that's something we're working on. We think it's really difficult. Our research, and we talked about this in the panel. We think it's really difficult for a casino that runs a traditional token, utility token, especially when the value gets crushed in the marketplace, which has happened to everybody, to operate their casino. And you could speak on this better than anybody.
Yeah, so just to give an example, so in our case we have our own token, so it's EDG token, and if people want to play in our casino, so they need to purchase the token. Yeah, and then the price of the token is like flying really, it's really volatile, and then let's say your casino makes 100,000 profits, and then you make your budget, but the next day the token price is minus 20%, and that means you didn't make 100K, you made 80K, and it becomes quite problematic for budgeting. Yeah, but in our case, we are running the system only for 1 year, and we are still experimenting and trying to find more efficient ways to manage this. So I think we are still going to try to experiment with this kind of method for at least 1 more year, and then see what kind of conclusion we can draw out of this.
У нас на платформе, так мы постоянно работаем, есть проблема с волатильностью, и мы ее пытаемся всячески решить. И сейчас мы переходим к тому, что криптовалюта – это один из способов пополнения баланса. То есть может быть пополнение баланса с помощью карты пластиковой, может быть там, с помощью скрила и так далее. И мы внутри своей платформы привязываемся все-таки к долларовому исчислению. Но, к сожалению, действительно из-за волатильности человек может сегодня положить на свой баланс там, 1 биткоин, видеть, что у него $7000, и на следующий день зайти, не играя, увидеть, что у него уже $6000. Да? И когда он попросит, например, вывести твои $6000, он получит обратно не 1 биткоин, а, например, там, уже 0,9 биткоина. Вот, поэтому мы рассматриваем тоже разные варианты. Мы думаем о том, чтобы вообще разделить, если человек играет на крипту, то он получает возможность вывести крипту, ввести, и у него баланс отображается в крипте. Если же человек использует стандартные фиатные методы платежа, тогда мы привязываемся к валюте, которую он оплатил. Ну, вот мы для себя вот что-то такое находим.
Probably the most obvious choice for this case is to adopt the best cases from the traditional live casino industry, where you can play with any currency you want, but if you deposit a certain currency, you withdraw it in the same currency. That's how we get rid of the volatility, at least on our own products, right? But still, let's stop putting all the eggs into the same basket, and let's stop putting cryptocurrencies together with blockchain technology, because the volatility of cryptocurrency doesn't have any influence at all to the blockchain technology itself. It's like there are two different cases, and there are people who tend to use cryptocurrencies, there are people who tend to use private or public blockchains. So, probably answering your question, volatility won't have any influence on the blockchain technology. But regarding the crypto market,
just the business though, it can affect the business.
Yeah. Regarding the crypto market, let's see how it goes. But there was a certain amount of lucky fellas who earned great amount of money last year when it all went high. I don't believe it will happen again, not in this industry. So let's just move forward and see what next.
We do some good stuff.
Yeah. Do some rational stuff.
Get to the Bitcoin block halves in a year. We'll see.
All right, guys. So I think we already run out of time. So let's have a quick question-answer session. And yeah, anyone have any questions to our panelists? No.
I'm sure they do, but know this is the first panel, so perhaps everyone is a little bit shy or sleepy, but I'm sure they will ask you all the questions just after this panel. Thank you, that was amazing. Let's have a round of applause for them.
Thank you, guys.
Under the impression of this great panel discussion, but I'd like to say that in about 30 seconds our next speaker is ready, so please prepare.
Sorry not to give you too much credit. But there anyway.
Okay, so one more time, hi everyone, and today is the second day of the CGC, and mostly in this hall you're going to hear the panel discussion, and only 2 speakers. So while we were choosing these speakers, I knew that they have to be really special, so they would attract your attention. So I'm very proud to present that our speaker is Dmitry Yaskimskoy, and he's the co-founder of the AdFlex. And, well, not only that, he's also an entrepreneur, designer, architect, speaker, obviously, educator, mentor, and blockchain enthusiast. And the product that is presented at the CGC is called AdFlex. And I'd like to mention that since 2014, our great speaker has co-founded one of the first and most successful in Ukraine learning-on-demand skills-growing project called IT Educational Academy, which is currently scaling as a franchise model. And actually about the AdFlex, I think we are going to learn so much more just in 5 seconds while we are having the round of applause for our speaker.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, folks, for coming all here. It's really our first time having this speech publicly. We've been working for 6 months developing our concept for this project. Our key goal was to solve problems, current problems, global problems in education and job market. So, you've seen this theme of this speech, lifelong game. People spend a lot of time playing games, but while they can boost their own profiles, boost their personal accounts in a gamified way through education. So you can unlock your potential through gamified education in this era. And we will talk about how technologies could help you do this and achieve your goals. So I should mention one of the greatest philosophers, Heraclitus of Ephesus, who once said that there is nothing constant as a change. So, and these changes means to people that they might lose a job. Every technology that we have now on the market is likely to make people lose their jobs. And that is the result of the research of McKinsey Consulting Group that is said they think that there will be 2 scenarios, but in general it will people will lose around 15 to 30% of the job places. And as we see by country, the most automated countries will lose more. So this is like 800 million professions or job places all over the world in worst case. And it means that each 5 of the employee will lose his position. And this will happen by 2030 year. And 70% of people, judging by the surveys, are sure that this is true. And only 1 of 10 jobs are likely to grow. So how automation will influence those jobs and what the categories of those jobs? So first of all, the cycling type jobs like sales and customer support services like that, they have been automated already during these years. We have, based on AI, chatbots which solve the problems, and people just losing their jobs and they have to requalify. The routine jobs will disappear in 10 years. So we will have the Uber drivers without drivers. Analytical jobs like researchers, analysts, economists, they will be improved by artificial intelligent platforms, instruments, and so on. But the complex and creative jobs like CEOs, managers, architects in systems, architects in buildings, building stuff, they are likely to be as well optimized, but they are unsafe during the next 15 years. This is one of the greatest futurists and top specialists in AI in Google. And what is, he says that technologies actually always bring more opportunities than it kills the previous one. So there will be more than 180 professions by that year. And this is just some of those. Of course, that technology changes. We need to get new opportunities through education. That's what we do when we graduating from the high school, from the secondary school, secondary education, and we strive to get education in a professional way, so that we can get our first job, and then we trying to learn continuously to stay in trends, to have all these changes in your spheres, keep a track on it. So the problems of current ecosystem in education is that learners don't know where to go, where to learn, what will be the professions they should get, and they don't know if this will be actual profession in 5 years. In Ukraine, for example, we had a lot of people who are not educating for higher education formally. They just spend their time, they don't spend 5 years spending much of the money and time, and when they graduate they have zero skills ready for the market. That is why they're trying to learn continuously on the platforms online. Job providers, they don't know where to educate their people to stay in trend as well, to keep up with the technologies. They don't know how to hire talents, because this is a problem. People are faking their resumes. It's hard for companies to hire a great specialist. They spend like 35% per place of a year salary just to find one great specialist. This is a statistic all over the world. And this is happening because people just faking their CVs, resumes, and they are not actually applicable to the job they pretend to be. And to tell you the truth, in 2012 since 2012, 17 CEOs of huge companies lost their job because it appeared that they faked their resumes. For example, CEO of Yahoo faked that he had an MIT degree in science and so on. So these people actually get their career really high, but they got that position with a fake resumes. And education providers, they are not communicating with the business demands, so they react too slow and they can't adapt their programs in time. So I will skip just all the details for the problems, but this is a survey result of how people think that they lack skills and they are ready to learn. And this is the skills that are in trending areas. So job providers lose a lot of time spending on those who fake their resumes and not fit the job they pretend to be. In Ukraine, for example, the the survey results in this year by Ernst & Young, 72%. HR caught those people that they were faking some certifications or skill sets and so on, or even interest in some areas. For Brazil, it's 98%. And I have to say that in America and all over the world, for the last 2 years, these numbers has grown more like 2 times. And when we have a recession, when technology comes to the world and it's spreading, people losing jobs and they want to get a job as fast as possible. That is why this percentage of faking is rising. So, what are the opportunities for the market? The education market in US is a second industry for its size, and it is $6.3 trillion. Today we have technology that merging into this area rapidly, and the market for the EdTech, it's called EdTech, Technologies and Education. The mission for it is to improve all the processes in education. So as we have job tech, so-called by us, because more of these technologies integrates into the current platforms we have on the market. And EdTech had a great potential, so you can see that by next year it will be $42 billion, and the growth rate is pretty high. So if we look to the numbers when people started to invest in EdTech, companies started to invest in EdTech technologies, in EdTech market, it was starting from 1997, and it was only $37 billion. For previous year, we have 9.6 billion investments in this area. So 62% of these investments have been made within two years. And if we talk about how these investments are allocated, you can see that only in pre-K-12, it's the education for the secondary and pre-secondary school, is only 144 companies. And the other ones are higher education and education for users and corporate segment is what we call continuous education. This is a platform-based education online. So there are limitless opportunities to educate for today, and this segment is really growing, and people don't know where to study, and they can search from all these platforms, and what they gain there is not recorded anyway. So we had previously a situation when you study at school or you study at the university and you have a diplomas, they are official, right? You have the recordings of how you performed, and when you can provide this data to a job market. It was before, but today the formal education is not it can't reach the rise of the technologies. It's happening too fast, so the companies are taking over the segment. And what we see now that even formal education is abandoning the offline format, and they making their practitioner educators just to record the courses. Edflix is an organization, and it's one of the key products in the platform that unites all the actors we've been talking about for the last 15 minutes. And it's intelligent blockchain because it's based on AI, and it is meant to unite people and organization to adapt to all the changes which our growth, technological growth is making. So this is how it looks. We want to unite all these actors, continuous learners, the one who strives to adapt and to stay in trend with their jobs, And as technologies rises, we are here gathered just to stay updated, to communicate, to learn. And the problems that we are solving is the lack of collaboration between these three actors, and uncertainty for example, learners or providers, or even education providers and job providers, where to go. They have no vision. They have no vision of the future, and they have no data between each other. So people don't know where to what the job will be trending and will be safe. People don't know where to get in-demand skills and knowledge for that job, and companies don't know how to get new talents and employees. So we are providing continuous learner with a tailor-made search based on their goals. We solve the problem of the trust because we are trying to record all the data on the blockchain, and we solving the problem of the people engaging, of learner engagements, who, for example, attend or trying to pass a course, and it is free, and they're not highly motivated to finish it. So technologies we are using now is harmoniously incorporate with each other, and we will see how exactly what they are doing for our platform. So AI is to analyze the data. I will go into the details in the next slides. Chatbot technology is used to onboard and curate people in their lifetime learning processes. Blockchain is to store the data that are obtained from the markets and from the learners themselves. Gamification is to engage people in education process and to succeed for their goals. In nowadays there is a trend in gamification of learning. It is called micro-learning. People who are working, they have no time to educate themselves, but they need to update their skills and knowledge. That is why the platforms around the world are breaking the huge courses into chunks, and people can easily pass a small chunk of 20 minutes in education daily, and it works for companies, it benefits for companies and for the employees. So loyalty system is a part of gamification as well, because we are trying to not even engage but constantly using our platform, because when people will use, for example, learners will use our platform to navigate and to buy courses, to acquire courses through other platforms, they are benefit from it from cashbacks. For example, if one can attend to a course, he pays there, and the 5% of the sum he spent is blocked on his ledger. And if he succeeds to complete, for example, his course in a week, he will get the cashback. If he will perform like the best student of the month, the best student of the week, he will get even more cashback or win a course for free. And he can spend this money to educate further. And the market of API is also rising, and we needed to communicate between all these ecosystem partners, participants. So what we are doing with our AI, first we gather the data, we parse in the data, we partnership with these top players in the job and education market. So when we get the demands and offer, we can analyze this data, and actually we can match it. So this is a process when we trying to not just match, we trying to understand the data, use it correctly, and categorize it in a manner we need it. So that through the API, we can share the data with other platforms, so they will stay on track. As for learners, this is one of our products. It's called Flexi. Well, Flexi is our intelligent personal assistant, and we want it to be in the future like your personal curator of your education that helps you to navigate through all the offers on the market, to update your skills yourself, and to stay engaged and motivated. So it helps you to achieve your cherished career goals. And how we do it? First of all, when people come to our system, we are using in our philosophy the Ikigai. It's the Japanese philosophy of how to find your purpose. And for this project, we picked the part of the purpose in your job, because people who are on the same, we are working like third part of our lives, and this is a huge, and for most of the people, one of the essential part of our life. We want to succeed in it, and we are on the, if we are in the right place, we feel happy. So this is how people are receiving happy. People in Japan actually live long life as well, because they are happy if they find their Ikigai. So first of all, the first step, Flexi asks people if what they are good at, to know what their current knowledge and skills they have. And the next step would be what they love, what they like to do, if they understand it. So, and this is the data we are gathering from the users. It can share with us his LinkedIn profile, his data from other resources, and so on. And the third and fourth part comes from our platform. So the third part is what the world needs. We provide him with information where his skills and what he desires is matching with what world currently needs. And the next step is what you can be paid for. For example, job providing platforms or hiring platforms where people search for job opportunities provides you with information what the salaries and the growth for different types of jobs. And people will see here as well. So how does it look like? First of all, people take a questionnaire, and this is where all the process of taking survey from him being asked. And for that, he gains the result of a pathway of where he can achieve his goal. For example, if he got the result that his profession will be gone in 3 or 4 years, he will start to predictably learn a new type of profession. So we will suggest him with the pathways where he can get those professions and what types of profession. We actually did it on our local project during these 4 years, because we have educated 11,000 people in Ukraine. Those were the people who are students who just don't know where to study, don't know what path should they take, and we developed a pathways, a roadmaps of education for them. And the other category of people was those who were losing their jobs. So those people I wanted to definitely have a job opportunity in half year or a year. First of all, we managed to help 95% of people who were using their tracks during the year to get a job, and we are tracking all of them during this life. And this pathway worked, but we managed to realize that things on the market changing so fast that even a year is not enough. If we build a pathway for a people, it can lose its actuality in like 3 months or 2. So we need to flexibly change the pathway for people at the point where he is staying right now and where he wants to be. So, and if he's just an employee who wants to improve his skills, his current skills, he can build a path for his goals. For example, I want to start learning blockchain. I want to receive a pathway how to start being in some category, for example, blockchain and games. I will creatively give the resources to get that information, even events. So courses, events, and even materials to read. So this is educational content catalog. It aggregates the data from resources for the needs or for your pathway and your goals. And when people select a content provider, educational provider from our platform, we want to make a smooth onboarding on those platforms. So we will develop an easy and quick access through our AdFlex Pass. It will be a single pass for all the platforms where he can share data with the platform and gain that data from it. If we are partner with this content provider, the content provider will get a widget that will engage people. For example, you attended to a course in EDX or Coursera or Udemy, and you forget in 2 days about it. Flexi will make you a notification and help you to get engaged back, or ask you if this is no more relevant to you. So you will grow for your personal needs. And everything that you've been passing through is gathered in your unified ledger. Well, talking about this is your profile, your ID, when we will get all the information from your formal and non-formal certification. When we get you your achievements during your learning pathways, and even events that you attend to, because, for example, if we know all this information and we have this stored on a blockchain in your ledger, we can make a data-driven opportunities for you. For example, find where to learn, because it will match with all that you have been learning for all this time, your succeeds, and you can find your job really fast, because someone is finding for exactly amount of skill sets, and you have that, and you're interested in some events to develop in some area, and companies can see your pathways, so they can find you as a talent that wants to develop in this area. And this will happen due to our matching system. And the third part is your interest. With your interest, you can find your tribes and your peers. Like here, we all gathered for the crypto and games. On this conference, we are looking forward, and we can be gathered. Personally, you want to gather a group of people around your town, for example, right? Or you can group, a company provider can group, find the people who are interested in these events, in this format. So, our mission of our organization is to open new educational and professional opportunities to people and organizations. And we are using technology not to make people lose their jobs, but to help them find these new opportunities. Well, and the day we started the project, it was 12th of, it was a day of cosmonautic, right? And that is why we are going to the moon with else.
Thank you so much for this amazing speech. If you have any questions, you are very, very welcome to ask our speaker all of them. Perhaps just not in the Greek hall, but after that, because I'm sure you have so many that we wouldn't have enough time for all of that. Okay, thank you one more time.
Извините, это наше профессиональное. We will speak English, Russian. We'll try English. It would be a big challenge. Okay.
Any chance you do not understand English, remember that there is a translation, you just have to pick up the things, okay?
We're starting. Hello everyone. Welcome to our panel on the impact of regulation on these technologies we gathered here to discuss. I will be the moderator of this panel discussion. As a representative of few worlds, I'm a game designer with over 23 years of experience. Also, I'm a partner of law firm Business Advisors, and I'm a co-founder of Crypto Association. And here I have my noble colleagues who will introduce themselves in turns, please.
Thank you everyone for coming here. My name is Anton, I'm a lawyer in Project Scorum. I think you've heard of us, or at least I hope that you've heard of us. We're a sports ecosystem with betting platform, with social media, some kind of, and with stat center, and so on and so forth. So if you would like to know more, we can talk later. So.
Yeah, hello to everyone. My name is Alexander Bonner. I'm a partner of SBH Law Office. We are working with the corporate business in Belarus and Ukraine, and I'm personally responsible for the IT practice, including the blockchain technology-based companies.
I am Darren Oliver. I'm BlockDraw. We're a crypto casino. However, prior to that, I spent about 20 years working in financial regulation in the United States. I ran a securities company. And then 3.5 years with the Albany Gambling Control Commission as the Deputy Director of Licensing. So I have a little bit of experience in both financial and gambling regulation.
Stanislav Skolsky, senior lawyer at GMT Legal Law Firm, so also judge at multiple blockchain awards. So our law firm actually provides services on international corporate structures and tax planning projects, which generally work with IT and gambling technologies.
So wonderful. We're here all experts in legal areas, and many are already corporate lawyers and have their experience, their share of breaking teeth on lands unknown. Because right now, legal regulation in this area forms as we go. So basically, there are a lot of legal problems arise, and the first question I gathered them from, of course, our auditorium. I asked some people what would they like to know about. So basically, the first question arised is about patents. Is it difficult, and how national or regional legal system affects the process of acquiring patents, and were there controversies about patents around the world? Because as many read about it, they found a lot of histories about someone getting a patent on something that already has been registered in some other region. So basically, have you ever encountered this problem, or maybe for some legal body, have you ever registered patent on cryptocurrency technology? Patent. So we've applied for a patent on our process, actually. In the United States, we applied for a patent pending. I'm actually following the patent area. I'm not a patent lawyer, but I'm following it because obviously it's an emerging area in blockchain technology. You know, you have a lot of ICOs that have been out there that are just kind of throwing things together, and they're really not focusing too much, many of them not focusing too much on patenting their technology. Whether or not some of these patents will be enforceable is a whole another issue that I think will be decided down the road. but having a patent portfolio is certainly a valuable thing over time. And for the crypto businesses that want to ultimately sell their businesses, their patent portfolio will add some value, in my opinion. Whether or not they're enforceable or not, they provide some deterrent to entry.
It's also necessary to understand here that patents as category are not applicable to any jurisdiction. So if you're talking about patent for a code, so it only exists in the United States and in a limited number of countries. So we are unable to say that patent is the right word here. It's more about protection of authorship. So we need to scope it specifically in every jurisdiction. So if you're talking, for example, about the European Union or post-Soviet Union states, so we need to look to another question. It's not about patent, it's about how the rights for the code, which is kind of a text which is protected, should be protected in this jurisdiction. And this is very important to understand that even if you have a patent, which may be useful in the United States, it's at the same time may be absolutely useless in the European Union. So you have to choose wisely what you're choosing here. Whether it is a patent to protect your rights there, or is it just kind of a certification that this is your code and you protect it in another part of the world?
Yeah, actually, the whole protection of the code is the protection of the copyright, mostly, at least here in Belarus and in post-Soviet countries as well. So the issue in most cases is how to protect your code and your program other than to register a patent as it is. On the other side, as far as I'm familiar with the information that I got during last conference in China that I visited, and I visited the Alibaba office, and they told they have the most patents in crypto technologies. They have more than 90 registered in the United States mostly. And the second world largest patent owner is IBM. And the third one is the China National Bank, which is People's Bank of China, actually. So Chinese are very active in registration of the blockchain-based technology. But this is, of course, not about gaming, gambling, or other things. They register it as a technology or other features connected with the national cryptocurrency or whatsoever.
Okay. As to the use cases, I would say that patents are not very applicable to our particular case. We've chosen to be open source, and I think it fits more the whole concept of blockchain. That's why we use it, as Alexander has already mentioned, that it's more about the copyright. That's why you have to properly choose the open source license if you're working in the blockchain sphere. And the second thing is that I'm not sure that patents are very much applicable to this very fast-changing, quick-changing sphere of blockchain. So it's very interesting. As far as I know, patents can take you up to 2-3 years to. I mean, you do not talk about the application form, but still, I don't think that it's very useful. So as a piece of advice, I would say that it's more about the copyright and it's more about the choosing the proper open source license if you would like to fit the whole idea of the blockchain. That's what we've done.
I think you raised a really good point about applicability. All of us have raised it. But the reality is, if you look at it from a purely business standpoint, if you have a proprietary technology, a patent gives you some limited, very, very limited protection, but it's still protection. It's better. It's like a Band-Aid.
Yeah, I should also
and there's some potential value to that.
And I should continue because as one who actually made some enforcement in the sphere of gambling, considering the clones of actual popular game portals which provide gambling services and interactive platforms. It's not about the code all the time. It's more about protection of players from cyclones on different domain names, which may be similar, so-called cyber squatting. So generally, the most important thing for every crypto game when it is a question of what should be protected in scope of intellectual property, it's first of all the trademark. it may be strange, but it's actually so. Because it is a way to protect the product itself as a platform from any illegal copy of it in order to receive your players and to make them think that they are actually using your platform. And this is sometimes even more important than actual protection of the code sometimes. And if you also been here on previous panel discussion, which actually involves specialists from the industry, it was mainly about regulation. And the question which was mainly posed is that the regulation itself is necessary specifically in order to evade this scam. And intellectual property in this case is not the thing that should be considered in order to protect your code. It is something that should protect your actual business and your clients.
It's famous misconception of a lot of game designers and specialists in development, IT development, that there is a difference between patents, and they don't know what IP law is. So basically,
patent, trademark, and copyright.
Yes. They often don't even, they mix this copyright R and C sign and put it all over without even knowing the difference. But indeed, it's a huge field, which actually, so people probably will not be able to cover all IP legal system of the world in this panel, because you really need to consult your local advisor, legal advisor, because even it much depends on your region.
There's also international treaty that affects it as well, on top of everything else.
Yeah, but
the most fun thing actually about it that the treaty, which is applicable, is the treaty was actually signed in the 19th century.
Yes.
So when we're talking about copyright, so the code, which actually was created in the 20th century, is still regulated by the rules which were applicable in the 19th century.
These rules are regulated, but every region has its own set of new additional tools which could be added on to protect specific technology, and or which could not be applied. For example, if in different regions, which are the least protected regions, if we're talking about IP, which are the least protected regions to have your company registered in the world?
The other issue about patents is the patent writers trying to write them and craft them in the broadest possible way as they can to get them still approved, and yet that weakens the patent, ironically.
Yeah, and actually it limits the applicability of this patent, because it is something a little bit different, and it is used in the same way. It's not protected by the patent, actually.
Yeah, I mean, we have the exact situation. MasterCard produced, we run our blockchain, we run private blockchains on multiple permission blockchains. And we applied for a patent on that process. We haven't gotten it. We used a provisional patent in the US, which is much faster. It's temporary.
We also face another question here, the related one, is how to protect the solutions which are actually based on blockchain.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking about, for example, Bitcoin blockchain, so who created it? Who is the author? And how to protect the copyright of someone who is actually using it, so because he actually infringes it. So if you're a blockchain, so you actually have to face a question that it is also has its own author. And even if it is an open source product, it is still regulated and the rights of the author are protected.
Yeah. So as I was saying, MasterCard produced multiple permission blockchains, but it's very broadly written and designed for payments, whereas ours is designed for data storage. So it's similar but different, and we have some other elements to it, so it's very unlikely that their patent will ever impact our patent. And that's just the problem, is that it's difficult to write these things. And as you pointed out, the industry is moving very fast, very quickly, things are changing rapidly. So, you know, that doesn't mean it's still not worthwhile, but the value is somewhat questionable.
As to the least protected region, yeah, the question was...
Yes, the question are...
I hope it's not Belarus, yes. I hope it's not Belarus, and I think it's not for me now. I'm not sure that there are any other regions that are so well protected as Belarus. And maybe there are some African countries, I don't know, yeah, so I would like to be patriotic here. So I think that we are not the last.
Frankly speaking, here, I consider that actually the Russian Federation is one of the best countries at this moment for regulation, because in the Russian Federation, you don't have a patent system for codes, but you actually can get a copyright certificate that this code is yours. You are unable to do this in Europe, because there, the only possibility how you can do this is simply to notarize the fact that you have this code, or even send a mail, so kind of a box, right to your office, in order to show that actually you are the author at this date. And here, maybe what can also change the situation is, again, blockchain. Because if the rights which are protected from blockchain will be also available public, it may be another form of publication of their of copyright results. But I think it's another question for another discussion, so I think we should move forward.
Yeah. Another question. Well, actually, this question was to lead us to the next one. One of our users of this conference asks us about how does national legislation affects blockchain projects. I guess they asked us, for example, get examples about how local legal system can affect it, and if blockchain system or cryptocurrency like project can actually, does it have some kind of characteristic which changes national-wise depending on where the company is registered?
Yeah, I would say that mainly the software development of blockchain-based games and technologies in most countries should not be regulated and is not regulated because it's just the software development. The problems are always when you start your program or game or whatsoever with the symptoms of initial coin offerings or distribution of coins from the one side or another side when you start to exchange some coins to real money, to fiat currency, and that is the most problem that face all the people that are sitting here. No development.
Yeah, I mean, you asked a very broad question about national. It's an incredibly broad question because, you know, blockchain has many uses. First of all, there's the payment issues that it's used for in cryptocurrencies. Then there's real business class uses. Yeah. There's business uses. Hopefully, payment comes with payment comes with AML. It comes with KYC. It infringes on so many different areas that are international laws that come back.
Actually,
it's too broad.
Yeah, as an international lawyer here, who actually graduated in both American, European, and Russian system, I had a little bit different perspective due to the fact that we actually work with 18 countries with our agents there, and we face an absolutely different approach here. So also as a person who actually made comments on the law projects in the Russian Federation and participated in discussion in other countries, the question here is what actually should be regulated and why. So please, those who are here, can you raise hands if you think that it is possible to transfer money through the internet? So if you think yes, please raise your hand. Okay. And what is the internet in this case? The internet is technology. The only thing you can store in it is information. So the only thing you can actually transfer is information. Monies are transferred by banks, and they simply use the information you transferred to make the payments. If we're talking about blockchain, it is an absolutely different approach which simply eliminates the third party. So here we talk about another concept of peer-to-peer payments. And we can't actually prove what is this payment. So we need to understand what's the value of it. It's only defined by two parties of these relations. So that Bitcoin was something. There's no actual proof, because the only proof that Bitcoin belongs to someone is the several lines of code, which are actually also in information. And the question here, which is raised generally by authorities, is if it is a legal tender and both parties agree that this is a legal tender. They have to pay taxes from income operations. And if no, so actually they still need to regulate the technology itself. And how the regulation applies here is generally by introducing the taxation rules and rules related to financial markets in order to secure parties of these relations. And only after this, all questions related to so-called security tokens and everything arise. The main idea here is that in this question, it's not more about blockchain regulation as technology. It's more about regulation of activities which involve this technology. So why crypto games here is a very good example, because mainly around 70% of all solutions of crypto games are related to gambling. And they are not related to any kind of a simple game. Only 30 of them generally kind of, it's my broad consideration of all projects which I supported, consulted, don't need to be related as gambling. So here, in relation to crypto gaming regulation, we need to understand that it's not about the blockchain, it's more about gambling.
Yeah, as to your question about the broad question of being compliant with as many jurisdictions as is possible, I would say that the question is where is the limit of being compliant. For example, I don't know if there are a lot of foreigners in this room, but for example, in Belarus we have special legislation in the field of using servers. For example, if the company provides some services or sells something to Belarusian citizens, the servers have to be stored, the data has to be stored within the physical boundaries of Belarus. So there is no way that any of the big companies or any other European companies or American companies can be compliant with this kind of law. The same situation is with, if I'm not mistaken, with the Russian Federation. There is law which obliges the companies to store the personal data in Russia. Yes, if I'm not mistaken?
This is a little bit different question of personal data protection.
No, I mean, the question in general was how the regional legislation can change the project. Where is the limit of being compliant?
This is a general concept.
How it's effective, yes.
Yeah, how it's effective. That's
some examples of...
Yeah, that's what I understood. So, as for me, some kind of a practitioner, I would say that there is no way to be compliant, 100% compliant with all the jurisdictions. So there is, every company, every project has to choose where are the markets, where would they like to be compliant. And if we talk about the ICOs or the cryptocurrency industry, there are some big markets where people are interested in how to be compliant there, like the USA, China, European Union, and they just do not care much about the others. So that's maybe the short answer on the question how the regional and national legislation will affect the industry.
I was involved in a deal in Ukraine, for example. It's a really good point. We were talking to lawyers on this deal, and he had brought up it was a consideration of the merger control clause within Ukrainian law. So when Ukrainian companies are sold, it has to get merger control clearance. But international companies like Microsoft, sometimes they pick and choose where they want to worry about these merger control clauses. So a company was being acquired and that Microsoft owned, and it had done a lot of business in Ukraine. And of course, the Ukrainian authorities recognized it, and they so it's a relevant question even to big companies.
So basically, to avoid any problems, and the legal system is not static; it changes all the time. So there are a lot of underwater rocks, which require constant legal attention by specialists. So basically, if you save money on legal assistance, you'll pay 10 times the price probably later on.
Here it's also necessary to understand that regulation itself is moving forward not only because the regulator makes it, it's also about self-regulation. So soft law actually forms a law in certain cases.
Moving forward is a very philosophical term. Sometimes in some regions it moves backward, unfortunately.
Yes, but how it also was previously stated here in the previous discussion, it's also about self-regulation organizations which at this moment may unite crypto games providers, which may actually make propositions of how they actually want to regulate this sphere. So it was a very good example recently that was explained that both specialists here. It's about how legal specialists cooperate with regulators and how they cooperate with with their clients in order to create something new. Sometimes it's true to make it backwards.
Yeah, often I also lecture of law faculty of the Russian State University. Often have to remind lawyers that it's a compliance with the legal system, this or the other. And another question, very interesting, probably would be to listen to many. Could you please tell about examples when different states negatively to cryptocurrency?
Security under US law, even though it should not be. So even kind of a chip in the United States, it is restricted. So you cannot do this. Every type of legal tender considered as gambling, well, as a bet in gambling. In Russian Federation, only monies can be considered. In June, there were actual amendments which include that virtual currencies in any kind, specifically, can be a form of legal tender in gambling. And in this, I'm not about the concept of these security tokens or ICOs, etc., etc. It's about the activities which are involved in this.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, because it's a complex issue. So you asked if gaming was particularly affected, but there's multiple layers here, as you pointed out. Whether or not the token is security, because you have to comply with securities laws in the country. Then if you manage to make that barrier, then you still have the barrier of whether or not the business that you're running is actually legal in that country. So if it's not, then you can't even apply the security laws to that token. So, but another issue is, you asked examples. Early ICOs were done without KYC or AML. A lot of them were done that way. And now they're going to apply for gambling licenses. And when they go to apply for gambling license, the regulator looks at them, the state regulator especially looks at them and says, who purchased these tokens? Who gave you the money? And in some cases they can reconstruct some of it, but often they can't reconstruct much of it at all. And they're basically going to be banned and blacklisted from whitelist jurisdictions. And there's been a couple, I don't want to name who they are, but there was at least one well-known ICO that was just refused a UK gambling license. And it's likely because of the KYC issue and some other issues.
Sometimes actually we also had the case when it was about random number generation. Because if you're talking about random number generation certification, it is a procedure which you're needed to get a license. Why actually you need a license? It is not about that you're allowed to use it to operate somewhere. It's about the way how you're going to pay taxes, are you going to get your bank account, how are you going to prove to bank that you're actually complying with the standards in jurisdiction where you're registered. And only after this we come to the question of the cryptocurrency itself. So it's only after this. And here, it still should be regulated not only about the questions of cryptocurrency questions, etc., etc. It's also about how the license should be obtained, and the RNG procedure is absolutely different in every country. So, for example, if you're going to work with the United Kingdom, you have to get the K license. If you are going to work with Malta, you should get Maltese license. But actually, you also can get the K license because it provides more strict standards. And actually, it's more universal, so you can also use it in Curacao. But generally, it's still, every time, related to how you create your model.
Okay, everyone, I think we're ready.
What? Oh, okay. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What?
Maybe we're running out of time, so I spent too much. And
someone is listening.
Yeah.
God,
we're ready.
But one thing he brought up that I think needs to be clarified is that that's another issue. A lot of ICOs rush through their development process without thinking about the regulatory impacts of what they did. Because I was a former regulator and I've actually regulated casinos, when we built our platform, we thought about all the pieces of it and how it could be implemented. Things like whether the RNG could be tested, And that slowed us up, where a lot of people were rushing, we were able to do their ICOs because they just didn't give a care. They just they threw RNG.org to do what they needed to do, or they came up with some other solution. Whereas we had to think of a way that could actually be implemented in a regulatory fashion that would be accepted by regulators and could be tested by a testing authority. And that's a problem that a lot of the current iterations of gambling companies haven't really dealt with. And whether they'll get away with it and fix it down the road is another question, but it may be a problem for them when whitelisting comes up. Certainly not if regulation is needed or not, and that's a whole other question.
I would agree with colleagues. The thing is that state protects people, and often reaction of the state not because of the name of technology. And crypto games at the moment are not that much of a game as the name suggests. The research shows that most players, they are not there for the game. Crypto games as a technology is very primitive game-wise. It's very basic, and as research shows, more than 90% of players, they're there for the game, not for the game. And state researches that reacts it and protects not people as players, but people as investors, as people as gambling subjects. So basically, state has to react according to the effect, not to the name. And so the prospect of regulation will be as regulation will change according to the change of technology and development.
Yeah, but think about it. Regulation was designed for several key purposes, right? One, to keep organized crime out of gambling. Okay, we often forget about that one, but that was one that was back from the days of Las Vegas. One, so that there's a probity aspect to make sure that the people who are entering it are not using it, misusing it. And then there's the issues that people don't think about in technology, which is things like problem gambling, underage gambling, and these are moral issues, whether or not the casinos want to actually deal with them or not.
Actually, in certain countries, it is also necessary to imply.
It's also a legal issue. Yeah,
it's also responsible gambling standards.
Yeah.
Because if you're unable to get licensed,
there's a legal issue, but whether or not people, I mean, there's a black industry, and whether or not
here about responsible gaming, what's important that you should imply specific self-exclusion standards in your services. So if you don't have a self-exclusion services in your platform, it may be potentially in violation of laws in multiple jurisdictions.
I have a question just as a lawyer. I'm just interested. I mean, as to a representative from the United States, are there any crypto games registered by Indian American?
First of all, I'm not I might be American, but I'm not. I'm representing the United States. But that being said, having lived there a lot of my life, have there been any crypto games registered as legal gambling casinos in the United States? The answer is, first of all, crypto gambling law in the United States is very limited online. There's only a few states that allow online gambling to begin with. So I don't know the answer to that question, so I won't do it. But I'm fairly confident we can say that there's probably no legal blockchain casinos in the United States. Right?
Bhutan's kind of like a region.
Kanawaki's Canada.
Yeah.
Kanawaki's not the United States.
Yeah.
We know that the United States have special regulation for Indian reservations, and they have a lot of legal bonuses.
The Indian reservations operate under state law and are still controlled by federal law, sort of indirectly. So state law still regulates gambling, and therefore this issue of crypto is not likely to penetrate for a while. That being said, online gambling is slowly creeping into the states. New Jersey has it, Pennsylvania has it, I think Nevada has it, and I'm not sure, there's maybe another state, Louisiana I think is getting it. So these are small states with not a lot of turnover, and it's possible, in theory, that crypto gaming could come to those states. I was on a panel in Las Vegas talking about regulation just 2 weeks ago, and that issue came up with the New Jersey regulator, and nobody has applied, and they they think that they don't think anybody would be able to pass their standards. Although I think I would pass their standards, but that's not the point. The point is there a demand for it? Is there actually going to be a use for it in the United States? Probably not just yet. Gambling is controlled by major companies in the United States, not small ones.
Another interesting question. It's a fresh one. Yesterday we had a speaker at the other panel from Bulgaria. There's a company, and attention, they have a crypto game with pornographic element to it. How difficult would it be in a different region to register such a wonderful project?
Well, that's a whole other issue, right? Then you have to, it goes back to that layering question we talked about with securities or gambling regulation, because then you have to deal with pornography regulations in various countries.
Actually, the one who provided legal support for several porn sites. Yeah. Every lawyer has his bad memories, and it's necessary to understand that in every country it should be related differently. So if we are talking, for example, about Cyprus, where main part of adult content business is based in the Pornhub is a Cyprus-based company. And here the question is that the obscene content itself should be only provided to the user after his direct consent that he actually accepted. If it is a visual porn content that involves adult content, which is with real imagery, it is should also necessarily involve standards of how information about persons who are involved in it is stored, and there is an actual proof that they are of age of majority in the jurisdiction of operation of the business. And since we're talking about gambling combined with this, it's a double question. It's a question about how it should be related in the point of view of obscenity content and the point of view how it's related in the view of gambling content.
As you may see, the regulation has nothing with the crypto games or blockchain technology-based games. So actually, what we are talking about, all of us, is when the games affect financial activities, when they have the investment activities, when they have some trading inside, when they have some gambling or betting inside, or when they have the prohibited or limited practices like porn and everything like this. So all which is regulated in those spheres, not in blockchain or crypto games as a technology or as a software themselves.
Yeah. We have some time left, so basically we need to turn to the one question which bothers present people the most, probably, is tax. I think many game developers, they worry about it the most. The choice of residence of the company often based exactly on that. So, please, could you comment about, questions are basic. Which countries suggest the better tax legislation which provides more income for crypto games projects?
Now, here, by our experiences, those who provided financial reports in Singapore and all that, the question is about how you actually pay these taxes, not about how you provide your financial report. Because mainly, there's kind of, again, a fetishism that if you form a company in certain jurisdiction, you're out of any problem. But the problem is that you actually face so many more problems which you're not thinking about that should be actually be in mind of financial reporting, etc. that you have to work. So maybe I would like to hear about you. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm sure you know, the forming the corporation alone isn't going to solve your problems, because more and more tax jurisdictions are starting to look at whether or not the people operating them are actually in those jurisdictions. The UK, for example, in the gambling industry in the UK, they essentially put the whitelist jurisdictions out of business. This was Albany, Isle of Man, Guernsey. And what they said was in the UK, hey, if your operations are not in the Isle of Man, or not in Albany, or in Gibraltar, then in fact we're going to assume you're in the UK and tax you in the UK. So forming the company alone isn't enough. where the people are operating, and then as for dividends, where the owner is ultimately is going to affect taxes. So it's a more complicated issue.
Indeed. But moreover, it's necessary to understand how the taxes should be estimated. So generally, by our experience and our approach, it's different from country by country. For example, in Slovenia, if you're working as a company in Slovenia, you are working with sale of your tokens in ICO, and you are not making any KYC procedure, you are unable to prove that actually you receive these funds from legal sources, you have to take 70% of your income to budget. Singapore, a very popular jurisdiction for crypto projects, I don't know why, but because there is actually no regulation for crypto itself, there is only certain positions of regulator. This jurisdiction provides that you have to pay your taxes in fiat. So even if it is a cryptocurrency, you can fix the profit, but you still have to pay in fiat. But to open a bank account for a company in Singapore, being a non-resident in Singapore, you have to be a wizard, actually. Because even if you're working with simple products in Singapore and you're a non-resident company, it's a very tough business to open bank account. In other jurisdictions, for example, if we're talking about personal incomes from cryptocurrencies, for example, when it is a question very closely related to crypto games, when you win cryptocurrency from the game, it is potentially an income, and specifically in certain jurisdictions, it's an income from gambling, and these two are taxed differently. So if you're a simple user who receives cryptocurrency, for example, by mining, etc., this is one taxation. Sometimes it's up to 0, but if it is gambling, it may be taxed up to 50% or even more. And this is also a very important question to consider: who should pay this tax? A person or a service provided this cryptocurrency?
I just got more respect for present companies from Singapore. Well, actually, tax question is a big question, and as Michael just mentioned, there are different types of taxes, and with qualified staff, well, if a company is good and professional, there's almost no income to tax it. Because there are a lot of different ways to work with it, and you'll have your accountants consult it.
This is exactly what people did in the UK. They use accounting procedures to offshore a lot of the income in different jurisdictions, and then in the UK, the HMRC basically accepts a 15% profit basically on a company that does that. So they just do it. So that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Moreover, it's necessary to understand that controlled foreign company standards are different from country to country. And if a long time before there was a magical offshore where you can store, where it was possible to store all your funds without even showing that you actually had them, even anonymously actually, from nominee. But now, with CRS standards and automatic exchange, it doesn't work. There are no offshores in concept that existed before up to 2017. And why actually cryptocurrency, by a certain reason, started to boom in 2017 is actually because it is still anonymous. And you're still able to keep your funds anonymous. And this is a very bad issue for the states. And this is what is going to be related. So how the funds are stored. And what should be considered by every crypto gaming project, actually by every blockchain related project, is how you identify your users. First of all, without this, it is impossible to say how you actually work.
Another really good point, because if you look at the growth of Tether, I mean, Tether's a very controversial instrument. But if you look at the growth of Tether, it grew, most of the market cap of Tether grew during Bitcoin's expansion. So there's a lot of speculation on why that is, and whether there's manipulation of the market, because Tether and Bitfinex have some sort of relationship. None of that really matters. What you do see was when Bitcoin was hitting all-time highs, Tether's growth was expanding because people were selling, taking profits that had made hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe in some cases, and storing it in what they considered a cash-based instrument because they didn't want to actually move that money to the fiat.
It's so a very good point actually, because the issue of stablecoin here is also very important, because if we're talking about stablecoin which is linked to actual currency, you are not regulated in this case as a cryptocurrency, virtual currency. Sometimes stablecoin, which is used for exchange, for example, if you can exchange your stablecoin for another virtual currencies and fix your profit, or even use it in different services. In this case, it's not a virtual currency, it's an e-money. E-money is regulated and licensed, and actually standards are pretty tough. Virtual currency is a different way to regulate this, but in this case, we should apply to different standards. And if we're talking about volatility itself, so volatile utility token, plastic token. Here the question is how you will protect the funds of the person who actually paid money to your platform, so that you guarantee that he actually paid a specific amount and not less or more on the next second. It's the key issue here is that stablecoin by concept is sometimes more difficult to make than classic utility token.
Actually, stablecoin has lots of problems. but it's probably going to represent, from a regulatory standard, probably going to represent a future. Because a lot of businesses, one of the things we're looking at in our gambling business is, because to take a look at gambling, people want to store value. They gamble and then they want to store value. You go to a casino, you bet, you get 100 chips, and you win 1,000 chips. You want to come out with 1,000 chips. You don't want to come out with 20% less chips if while you're in the casino says, oh, our token fell in value 20%. Sorry about that, but this is the point.
Yes.
So stablecoins are going to become, I think, over time, and stablecoins supported by businesses. The current stablecoin model is such that they're just random stablecoins. They're made, and they're supposed to be self-fulfilling. But stablecoins supported by businesses make a lot more sense. And they actually work like little economies, if you will, like actual functioning economies. If you have a profitable business for supporting a stablecoin, it's going to be obviously much more stable. It has the potential for much more stability because the company can support FX losses that happen in the portfolio that support it. But then there's all sorts of laws. It's literally a second business.
Yes. I actually, at this moment, is involved in a project which creates such a kind of a stablecoin, but it's linked to SDR. And every part of its actives is backed by real estate. So in this concept, it's a little bit different because you're actually a beneficiary who can receive actual tangible property for your token. So maybe this is one of the possible features of stablecoins, but this kind of a stablecoin will be absolutely useless for every crypto-related game because it will ruin every possible economy there. Because being a beneficiary means that you also get profit from the coin. And here we are going back to this multi-layer question of relation.
No. I would also like to be one more time a little bit patriotic. First, Belarus is not part of CRS. We do not exchange our information about the any other holdings and other property abroad. Not yet. Yes, and of course the substance issues. All the companies will face them. And the second thing I would like to mention is that in Belarus we do not have an income for persons in the field of cryptocurrency. So you're welcome.
Question about taxes.
The fact that Belarus is not in the system of exchange of information is a bad issue because of these reasons the companies with the UBOs from Belarus are not allowed actually to open accounts in foreign banks, and it occurs and of course the transactions that are coming from Belarus or from the company with the beneficial owners from Belarus, they are like a red line, and it's really impossible to make those transactions. So the negative effect of this is much higher than the positive, that someone hides its income. So.
Also, of course, we're almost ran out of time. Well, actually, we ran out of time, but there are a lot of questions which I skipped about the criminal law. Of course, scams for everyone. Well, as lawyers, we can say that yes, it's a big problem for trust to this technology, to this type of business, because there always will be attempts to do easy money for some. Crypto games tied on marketing a lot, and basically scams can be so basic as, for example, in Russia, just selling a coin to someone Nizhny Novgorod telling that it's a proper Bitcoin, and it's a common problem. Basically, scams will be as long as there will be crypto illiteracy. People should be educated. Mainly, it's a question of trust.
Scams are going to be around whether it's literacy or not.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but
every time.
doesn't matter. The more successful they would be, the less literate people are.
No, I don't agree.
The scams itself are also actually
evolve. They evolve.
It's endemic in the whole process. You know, you look at regulation in the United States. They just legalized sports betting.
Yeah.
Literally, the regulator in New Jersey told me they had been tracking 160 different online sites that were taking bets in New Jersey before it was legalized. And after it's legalized, they consistently believe there will be a continual black market in sports betting, even though it's legal.
Yeah, but here the question is also very important to every crypto game specifically related to gambling. You're actually able to act even in violation of law. In certain jurisdictions, you're actually not punished by criminal persecution, but you're paying fine for this. Yeah, exactly. But the question here is that still, if you're acting in violation of certain law or illegally, so in gray markets, you can do this. Yes, you can act like this. Nothing stops you. Nothing in this world actually stops us except the people around us. Yeah. It's about moral responsibility and also about the consequences of your actions. Because people, this is actually what state is and what state represents. The main idea of the state here is to protect people. Not pretty good sometimes, yes, but still it is the reason why it was created. And this protection sometimes can be kind of an overprotection in certain issues. And gambling, both with cryptocurrencies in this case, are potentially the spheres where overprotection should be definitely be made until the specific regulation against scams will appear.
Yeah, often a lot of crypto gaming companies they imply to ensure the trust to their project, they imply the simple institute of advisors. They invite public figures who are there to stay, and these public figures, of course, having a certain image and not wanting often to be part of any negative activity. Of course, it's not a foolproof plan, but if there are actually indeed some people who proven to be successful in the industry, you can ask around and you can see the companies there to stay. They have also plans and technology designed to go on for a long time, not for a few weeks or a few months. Still, investing probably would require some research and consultancy with legal, perhaps, company which you work with, right?
Well, the best explanation made by a colleague in relation to 420 statement of Elon Musk. I think this is the best explanation which may be made for this relation, because actually the statements for representation which may create certain investment expectation from projects so that it is actually more or less secure may be considered as a market manipulation in certain cases. And it depends from state to state, but it's generally a universal procedure that if you involve kind of a celebrity person in your ICO, like an advisor, kind of this, it may provide a false expectation from the persons who actually take to this project. And this is an issue which is absolutely not related to scam. It is an issue which may be involved in a well-working business also. It's about market manipulation. It's, again, multi-layer. And here, it is an issue to consider.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, and we tried to speak to you about the problems which you yourself asked us about in your language. We tried to use as least legal terms as possible because, yeah, we have language of our own which everyone hates. Basically, we do try to advise you, but still, at any step, just come to speakers maybe here to consult some at some certain case or project, because every project has its unique features, and we can guarantee you that these answers we gave you are fit right there to your project. But sometimes lawyers, like in Belarus and some other countries, can guarantee that tomorrow everything will be the same.
You had to end this with a legal disclaimer, did you?
You made a disclaimer, but afterwards, you know.
We consulted you here, but tomorrow come to us. We need to consult.
You should have done it before the beginning, not afterwards.
So basically,
we should write it down for everybody to sign.
Basically, a legal issue is serious, and with every new technology, probably all colleagues would agree, the utmost serious for your work, for your investment, whatever it's time, strength, your skill, or money, to be protected and not lost in vain. So basically, you heard here, and you see a couple of law firms here, and specialists represented, and maybe you have already your own. Please value them and their advice, ask them. Without you asking, nobody, no one of legal profession will give you advice, because we don't. For us, advice is our responsibility. If we advise without looking in, we endanger our professional competence image.
Actually, basically, advice is done by hourly rates.
Yeah.
And if it is done by this, it is legal advice. Still, if it is a free advice, generally, it's not legal advice.
Yes, we have responsibility for every single state. So basically, we try to get into it to have the best advice for you as possible. Every situation is unique. And please give some applause to our experts and me as well. And let's see each other on the lunch.
Да, наверное.